Hello. Today I'm going to talk to you about a tool that can be used for time management and prioritization and essentially help you to be successful, whatever task you choose, due to the time it frees up. And it's called the time quadrant. So what you need to do is write out all the tasks that you need to complete on a daily or weekly basis and write those tasks into one of these areas of the quadrant based on the level of urgency and the level of importance of each task. So if the task is urgent and important, you write it up here on the top left-hand quadrant for urgent and important. And essentially, this is the area of reactivity. This is the area of crises, emergencies, processing problems, deadline-driven projects, last-minute preparations. So for example, if you have to deliver an important presentation in an hour's time and you need to do some research or prep for it or edit the slides, then that would go into this quadrant here. These are the tasks that you need to do essentially in the moment. And if it's not urgent but important, so this is the quadrant essentially of proactivity. So things like preparation, planning, prevention of issues that could be coming down the line but wouldn't necessarily be urgent, values clarification and essentially helping people to be aligned with the purpose, capability improvement, relationship building, and true recreation or relaxation, those times where you need to plan for it and do it. Otherwise, if you keep putting it off, then it will become urgent because you could start to become burnt out or it will affect your health. And these are the things we plan for. And then if this task is urgent and not important, we put it into this quadrant here. This is the quadrant of deception, essentially. It can seem urgent, but it's not important. Things like interruptions, some callers, some mail or emails, some meetings, or even if the meeting goes on longer than it needs to go on for, so the time within that meeting, and many pressing matters and popular activities. So the tasks for not important and urgent go into this quadrant. Then, if you have not urgent and not important tasks, they go into this quadrant. So essentially, this is the area of avoidance or busy work and trivial activities, some calls or emails, escape activities, and time wasters when they're not necessarily needed. So then, based on where you have all of these tasks, a very important step that a lot of people forget about or haven't been introduced to is to then downgrade the task if you can at all. So oftentimes we might see something as urgent and important, and then if we see too many things as urgent and important, and if they're not necessarily so, we're continuously in crisis mode trying to do everything at once. So if we can downgrade it and realize that it's either not urgent or not important, then it will go to a different quadrant and we'll do something other than have to do it in the moment. And it's the same for all of these other quadrants. If you see something as not urgent and important, and you can downgrade it then to not important, then you'll approach it differently. So bring the tasks if you can, and you might need help to do this. Someone that you report to or might have more information on its level of importance and level of urgency, you can ask them about it. Is this important and urgent, or to what extent is this important and to what extent is this urgent? And then with that information, you can downgrade them. And that will free up so much more time as well, because it'll be more clear in the next slide because of your approach then based on where each of these tasks are on the quadrant. So if a task is still then in the urgent and important quadrant, this is the quadrant of necessity. You need to do this first, essentially. And if the task then is not urgent, but important, this is the proactive quadrant. You plan to get it done. You allow time for these. So you should be spending most of your time in this quadrant. This is the quadrant where you're planning for it, and then you're doing it when you have it in your plan. So you might put it into your schedule, and then you do it when it comes up in your schedule. And if you're spending too much time in the urgent and important quadrant, then it might be a sign that more planning needs to go into it and you need to spend more time here in the proactive quadrant. Also then, for the not important and urgent, this is the quadrant of deception. So you try to avoid or reject these tasks. Or if appropriate or possible, you can delegate it to someone else. And that will free up a lot of time too. And then approaching this quadrant, the not important and not urgent, by seeing this as the quadrant of waste, you avoid escaping here and you delete out these tasks. So this really helps you to build your awareness. And then if more tasks come, you might necessarily have to do this over and over again. You'll automatically be able to categorize these new tasks in terms of their level of importance and in terms of their level of urgency. And you'll see quickly then what you need to do with these tasks. So a nice way to think about it are the 4 Ds. If it's important and urgent, you need to do it. If it's important and not urgent, you can defer it. If it's not important but urgent, then you can delegate it. And if it's not important and not urgent, you can delete it. And that will free up so much of your time. It builds awareness into it and gives you a clear path for what to do for each of your tasks. It will help you to prioritize and will help you to be successful at whatever task you take on or whatever goal you have because of the time it frees up. The alternative is to be in crisis mode more often due to seeing things as important and urgent when they might necessarily be so, or be spending more time in those lower quadrants where they're not important or not necessarily urgent and wasting time, and then being less effective in your role and less effective at your goals, and then impacting both your work and your well-being.